All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linkidan Joshua, and this is the third session for our research fundamentals series, which we kickstarted 3 weeks back. 2 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks back. And we are back today with great energy on to discuss academic writing, where we have our keynote speaker for this very great day, our senior colleague, a researcher, a pastor, and all in one, Joseph Joel, to take us on academic writing. And today he's going to talk to us about the foundations of academic writing, what academic writing really is, and why it matters. He will talk to us about the forms and character of academic writing, which he will further break down into the features, the types, and the academic versus the informal divide. He's going to discuss on these key things and critical. And he's going to look at the atomic and structure of academic writing, which includes building, the proper and you know the proper structure that holds paper and holds together. And then lastly, he will talk about the craft and integrity of academic writing. First, this is very important because it includes things like avoiding pitfalls in academic writing, citing and referencing properly, and also literature mapping, which is very and highly fundamental. I recall Dr. Ben was asking me today if I had used lead map, and I was like, "What is lead map?" He talked about literature mapping. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's." He's also going to talk about these things today, and more beyond what I've just mentioned. Summary of how the class would go as we have him to talk to us about this topics I have talked about, just listed out. I hope we would pay great attention and have the best of the session. So I invite Joseph Joel to talk to us about academic writing. So Joel, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, everyone here. It's nice having you guys on board, and I'm having to talk to us again tonight on academic writing. It has been a very great moment with you guys, and then for those who've taken the last classes, I think I really appreciate what you've been doing. So, without much ado, I'm going to go direct to sharing my screen so that we can begin tonight in the matters of academic writing. So, I don't know, can you see my screen? Hello? Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, sir. I can see your screen.
Okay, okay. All right. So I'm trying as much as possible to make my screen as my slide as simple as possible so that we sorry. Okay. Look on this. Okay, so I think basically tonight, as I've said, we're going to be talking on academic writing, and it's obvious that we are in a time right now where enough people don't really want to pay much attention to academic writing, and so tonight, uh, Mr. Joshua said a lot as given the breakdown. And then I will just go ahead to proceed with academic reading and the research mastering. Talking about the art and the discipline of scholarly approach. And the presenter is Joseph Joel, as you can see over there. Is Mr. Joshua there?
Oh yeah, I'm with you. It's just that I'm having some network glitches. It comes off and on, but yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, I think it's going to reverse my network. My slide is not really moving. Anyways, my things are moving.
Uh,
My slide is not. Well, so
can
Mr.
I come
Ben,
again?
are you?
I didn't get that.
Yeah, my slide is not really moving. What? Okay. All right. So the outlines here, as you have said, we have the foundation of academic writing, the formal characters of academic writing, the anatomy and structure of academic writing, crafts and integrity, the common pitfalls of academic writing. So I'm diving right away. So first one we talk about academic writing. I'm sure a lot of you guys here are already into the research field entirely. And when we talk about that, it's not a new thing again. We already know what it is. And academic writing basically it's a formal evidence-based system of writing or communication, and it's not just something you write for ink for maybe uh, for the joy of it, like the way a lot of like the poets now. Sometimes I write poem based on my mood. I write poems when I feel happy. I write poems sometimes when I feel sad. And I write poems maybe just to put out things. Same thing even with content creation, the content writing stuff. It happens like that. But when we talk about academic writing, it is something that is first evidence based and then it's systematic also. And the goal is it is for argumentation support by and it's also supported by verified evidence. So when we talk about academic writing, you can't just go ahead to pull down statements without telling us that this thing I've done, this is what it is, and this is where it's coming. Academic writing, basically writing that has to do with um, systems and evidence. So it's not scattered. And I had to put down some core purpose of academic writing. Some of the purpose of academic writing first is to produce and transmit knowledge. That's the first step. In fact, when I'm writing as an academic, sorry, my goal is that I'm writing to produce first and then transmit knowledge. That the readers should be able to have an understanding of something that an information should be passed. That's the first thing. The second thing is to test ideas logically. Yeah, so another thing again, why we write in the academic system is to test ideas logically. Another thing again is to contribute to existing literatures. Yeah, so I think either what's his name? Ben, Dr. Ben, or I don't know who he says is going to come to do that, to do more talk on literature review. I'm not going to do that. So another thing is to contribute to existing literature. So if there is a subject matter, one of the reasons why I write also is to contribute to what has been on the ground. Now, the next thing is to be able to enable productivity and critics. So at the end of the day, the goal of academic writing should fall around these things I mentioned. If the goal of academic writing doesn't fall into it, then there is a challenge. There is a challenge. So that's one thing to understand about that. Now, but the next thing is when we move into that, continue with the academic writing stuff, there are characteristics and then there is a reason why academic writing matters. The first thing is like the characteristics or the key of academic writing. First thing is objectivity. Now, that's why I think a lot of you guys have read papers. When we read a paper, at the end of the day, you get to a point, we are told about the objective of the paper. The objective of the paper is to help create a system that guides what you do. So that's the goal of the objectives. The objective is what drives everything you do. The objective is what brings you together to have that paper written properly. Then another key characteristics is it's evidence-based reasoning. So that if I put down if I put down the right thing and I said that this is this, but I'm not just writing wishfully, I'm writing with evidence. At the end of the day, someone reads my article, someone reads my writing, they should be able to trace that writing to something tangible. That's another thing to look up for. And another key characteristics again is formal tone. So in academic writing, I don't write academic articles loosely. It has to be formal. Remember, in fact, where the to define it is structured, systematic. So there's that formal settings around it. Structurally, structured, argumented. So when you don't write academic writing haphazardly, there are principles or there are steps to writing academic papers, even down to the point of paragraphing. Some let's say some supervisors, like for students, we tell you that the paragraph should have at least 6 lines. It gets to that point. So these are certain things. Then another key characteristics again in academic writing or research papers is the citation of source. Citation of source. And I think when Dr. Ben did the last class, I'm sure he talked about some things like this. But when I'm writing academic writing, in my writing, I should be able to also refer to someone who said something like that, because many times I don't originate all the statements. Someone said something else when I'm building on. So I had to learn to also cite people. And citation basically is one key thing an academic writer needs to know how to do. But the last characteristic is clarity and precision. At the end of the day, if you are done writing, if what you've written is not clear, if what you've written does not really pass in with precise information, then what you did is not academic writing. The goal of academic writing is that once everyone reads it, goes through the material, should be able to understand what you put down. Now, why is that? Why does academic writing matter? Why does it matter? First is it helps determine research credibility. So you don't just tell me you did the research or you did something. First is that it helps research determines research credibility, influence publication acceptance. So I've seen a lot of people who send paper publications and their materials are rejected. I think we had one of the conversations here, and then I was asked if I had rejection in publication, and I said no, I've not had rejection when it comes to the matters of publication so far. Yes, and then my corrections are minimal. It matters to pay attention to it. Now, it helps build academic credibility and reputation. Yes. So, learning academic writing is very important because it helps you build those credibility. And I'm glad that a lot of us here are already getting involved in it. And one of the things again it does is continuity. Knowledge continuity. So if there's been an information that's passed, that started either a theory that started in the 1980s, continues like that. So we keep adding up. I don't think there's anything you are the first person to write on. Every other thing you are doing is you are building on what others have written. So that's one thing to take note of. Now, when we talk about the forms, characters of academic writing, now, so I'm going to try as much as possible to be as brief and then precise. Yes. So we'll talk about the forms and characters of academic writing. Now, I'm going to begin by defining two things. First, I have the academic writing, I have the informal writing. So that we can talking about the forms now, so that we can understand which one is academic writing, which one is not academic writing. And you can see on the table here, I have a column for futures, a column for academic writing, a column for informal writing. I had already said some of these things earlier, but I'm putting it out here so that you can also see through it. So talking about the futures, we have the tone. Academic writing is formal. informal writing is conversational. Now, talking about evidence, in academic writing, evidence is required. In informal writing, evidence is optional. So that's why you can just imagine something. Fiction writing, you can be fictional in your writing, but when it comes to academic writing, it's not so. You have to show us that this thing I said is like this, and this is the evidence. In academic writing, we believe in what we see, not just what you think. Now, talking about structure, academic writing is strict. Academic writing is strict in such a way that you have to follow the orders in which it should be written. But in informal writing, the flexibility is there. Talking about audience, the audience in academic writing is scholars. So that's why in this meeting, we're having a very limited number of persons here because not everybody is very much interested in the academic writing. Yes, and then purpose of academic writing is for knowledge building. So this is one of things we need to look out for. Now, the next thing we need to look out for still in the forms of academic writing is the types of academic writing and then looking at academic voice. Now, when we talk about the types of academic writing, we are expected to recognize there are basically two types. We have the descriptive writing and we have the analytical writing. Now, when we talk about the descriptive writing, basically what it does is defines concepts, tells us, okay, this thing is like this. But when we talk about the analytic writing, there is a proper breakdown. So that's why when you move into maybe we are doing analysis, reviews, normal review writings. We also have what we call a descriptive review, which just to tell us that okay, this is blah blah blah, this is this and this and that. And when we move into stuff like systematic review takes you to the point where you are not just describing, but you are also going details to bring out information that are hidden and then analyzing them to move further. So these are I just classify academic writing into these two things: descriptive writing and analytical writing. But if we are to now go details to talk about writing, I think that should be another class entirely. When we talk about academic voices, an academic voice is a strong academic voice is neutral, it's not emotional. So it's either a yes, maybe if I carry out the research and at the end of the day, if I do hope that my research, that's why in academic writing we have what we call the hypothesis. So you have either a null or alternative hypothesis. At the end of the day, your research should fall into one of those things, either a null. So your research it has to be neutral. Your voice, everything you are doing in your paperwork has to be neutral. Nothing like emotional sentiments in it. You have to be precise. That's why at the end of the day, if what you are bringing in the writing is verse, then your writing is polarized. Your writing is not accepted. Now, another thing to look out for is logical. You've got to be logical in your writing. That's why not everybody can come into the academic system. Not every wishful thinker can come into it. And I said earlier again, one of the things to look out for it is evidence driven. Not like assumption in academic writing. It is either A or it is B. It's either black or it's C. Assumptions are not welcomed in that. Now, the next thing I'm going to be talking on is the anatomy and structure of academic writing. So a lot of people have a little issues here, or I don't think it's a complex thing. When we talk about the anatomy and structure of academic writing, basically we're talking about what academic writing is made of, how it is being prepared and arranged. Yes, and the first thing to look at is the anatomy and structure basically is the backbone of scholar writing, and the scholar structure. Here's the model I have on board here, the IMRAD model. And the IMRAD model is broken down into the introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. Now, when we talk about the introduction, talking about that, when we talk about the introduction now, the introduction contains, let's say, the introduction contains the information, let's say the definitions, the descriptions of the writing that we do. about to do. That's one of the things to note. It talks about the background of the subject matter, talks about the problem statements, talks about either the objective or the significance of the studies. The introduction also contains your aim, contains your objectives, contains some studies you have to contains a scope of study, some also definitions of terms. So this is what is contained in the introduction. Now, when you proceed further, you talk about the methodology. Methodology basically is a structural way of writing, the proper arrangement, the step-by-step arrangement of writing your paper. So your methodology basically tells us how you are going to carry out or the how you did it. So that's why when you are doing an experimental work, if your methodology is not properly written, then there's a challenge. And that's why I strongly advised as a researcher, you don't even go into the lab if you've not been able to collect journals, read papers, right? That that tells you about your methodology. I always see, I always for me as over the years, I I would prefer every researcher first to understand the methodology of the work even before any other thing, before venturing to any other writing. I'm currently doing assisting some persons in some more currently. And one of the things I have to tell them is let's get journal, study journal, and then make sure we understand the methodology. And before we venture into the bench work, that's the lab work. Now, the other thing to look at for is your results. Your results, what you do in your result basically is to put out your findings. At the end of the day, when I carried out this research, what did you see? Now, you present results in different formats, either in table, either in your charts. Yes, you present results. That's just it, basically, the findings. Now, when we talk about the last discussion basically is, talks about at the end of the day, when your results came out, did your results was there a synergy and agreement with all? Your discussion basically is to tell us to interpret the results. Tell us, okay, this result I got, this table and this chart, this is what it is. And this thing agrees also with so papers based on past publications. These are certain things to look out for. Now, there are some things I didn't mention here, talking about the anatomy and structure of academic paper. I didn't mention abstract. Abstract is one of them. Abstract is very important. Abstract is just a summary of the entire summary of an academic of a paper. Yeah, and basically some abstracts in between 200 and some 300 words, and then with keywords. We also have the conclusions too. I didn't add it up here. So, conclusion basically is that at the end of the day, after I carried out maybe my research, or after I carried out my findings, okay, this is what I saw. After my results, after you interpreted your results, okay, at the end of the day, this is what I saw. So basically, that's it about that. Now, I want to talk about crafting and integrity in academic writing. This is where a lot of people has issue in crafting and integrity. I think deep yesterday I was with one of my senior colleagues, and we were talking about the matters of the abuse in academic writing so far. And it's obvious a lot of people have been doing that. I think I remember 2 years or 3 years ago, we were told of a young guy in Kano State who copied someone's work and then published it. I think the guy who published his work is in one of the foreign countries in Europe. The guy came down to Nigeria. They came in and arrested him. Yeah, they came and arrested him because he there wasn't integrity in what he did. And currently, there's a lot of people who have been abusing the academic writing so far. Yes. Now, when we talk about academic integrity means no plagiarism. Now, what's plagiarism? Plagiarism is the act of copying someone's work directly without first either acknowledging the person or not even a paraphrasing of the word, like word-to-word copying of extracting of someone's material. You didn't acknowledge the person, and then you took the person's work and then you acclaimed it yourself. So that's one thing. It's not plagiarism. Two is it's no proper citation of source. A lot of people are fond of that. They get a material or a piece of article from a particular source, and then they cite it to another source. So that's why I'm sure for those who are attending the place like that, I'm sure other presenters did a good job by telling us about Mendeley and Sotero. That's why we made emphasis on this thing. So you should know how to use Mendeley, you should know how to use Sotero as a researcher or as an academic writer. That's one thing. Second is honest data reporting. Now, when we talk about the honest data reporting, I've been in a system whereby, like in the Nigerian system, there's been a lot of abuse in this thing. Yeah, there's been a lot of abuse in this thing where results are polarized, where results are mixed up. Yes, and these things are not academic integrity. The next one is transparent methodology. I think currently the work I said I'm doing currently in the lab. Somebody was like, if I'm going to carry out the research, he was saying something, but in academic setting or laboratory setting, is not fit. One thing is not good. There is a procedure we need to follow, but he's bringing up a procedure that is not it. I didn't agree with him. I didn't agree with him. So this is one thing to understand when we are crafting, when it comes to crafting academic writing and interpreting academic writing. Now, this thing is very important, citation and referencing. Now, when we talk about citation, we need to understand what in-text citation is. We need to understand what a reference is. In-text citation basically is when you got a statement, when you borrow a statement. Let me use that word borrow. When you extracted a statement from a particular paper, you've got to acknowledge the original writer of that statement. Now, while you are writing your literature, while you're writing doing your paperwork, your article, then you mention the author's name and the year. Now, at the end of the day, it's expected that after you properly do your citations, your in-text citations, you should reference them. And when we talk about references, there are some references that are common references, right? APA, and APA now, I think some schools are using 6th edition, and I know a lot of people that are currently doing 7th edition right now. A lot of schools are on 7th edition. We have at Chicago. The Osclar, sorry, is law focus. So if you are doing any writing in the law firm, yes, that's why you do that. I think I'm just working on a paper currently for a law firm, and then that's what I'm using for their citations and references. So for that, basically, the structure is totally different. Another thing to take note of is common pitfalls. Common pitfalls. In academic writing, is very, 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 very important to pay attention to pitfalls, or else you have issues. Now, when we talk about the pitfalls, the first thing to look out for is plagiarism, as we said, direct or accidental. So that's why I'll keep emphasizing on this, that when you are writing academic, when you're doing anything academic writing, you've got to avoid it. Because if you're arrested, you are going for, I think, 21, is it 18 or 21 years in prison? So you might spend like a large chunk of your life in the prison because of either an accidental mistake. Yeah, so it's one thing to look out for. And other thing again to look out for is overgeneralization. Overgeneralization. That's when I'm writing, when I'm doing academic writing, don't just collect everything. You've got to learn to, and that's why the usage of PubMed, I really recommend the usage of PubMed in academic writing. Now, what PubMed help you do is that you can filter. Maybe you are looking out for papers. You can filter out papers. You can filter either based on the number of years relevant to the topic, keywords. When you are writing academic paper, it's very important to have keywords, what you work with. It helps you to reduce some of those irrelevant materials. So it's very important to check out for that. Now, weak argumentations. This is something to look out for. But when I'm bringing in any context into being, but I should make sure that they are valuable. I should make sure that they are solid to what I am doing. Another thing to look out for again is sorry, please. Another thing to look out for is lack of structure. So that was why initially I mentioned the structure out there first. If there's no structure, then your writing will just be anyhow. So it's very important to understand that you've got to have these structures in place. Write them down, then work on them step by step. While have unsupported claim, then poor literature and integration. Now, that's why our next class, I think, which is going to be on literature review or literature writing, everyone here is very important that we pay attention to it. You can have the best papers collected together and still end up writing the poorest, you end up writing a very poor article. So these are also things to pay attention to. Now, when we talk about literature mapping, there are tools. There are tools that can help you in doing that. But I think the person doing the next class is going to do more justice on that matter of literature and mapping, which I will not really do touch that. I won't really touch that. And basically, what you can see on the board on my screen here is what I'm just going to fish out. Now, you've got to, before you venture into anything, one of the things you need to pay attention to is identifying gaps in the future. And I think I've heard Dr. Ben, right? I've heard him spoke over and over. Anytime we're having conversation, he talks about, so I was reading this paper and I saw this. I was reading social paper and I saw this. Yes, these things is very important. It's one of the key skills you need to have, the ability to identify gaps in literature. Okay, this author, after this whole work, this is something that is missing, this is something that is not in this work. Okay, that's why initially when I began the class, right, my presentation, I said that academic writing, you're not the first person who is starting anything. There's nothing new. Even any research we call novel research. Novel research had the foundation. So all you are doing is a build up. You are doing an add up. That's one. Second is compare conflicting stories. In literature mapping, one of the things you do is you don't just pick out a particular literature and then you run with it. No, you do comparison. That's where literature synthesizing of literature comes in. That's where synthesizing of literature comes in. Okay, so author said this. Now, on the same matter, so author said this. You've got to be able to go through the synthesizing process. Next class is going to talk more literature writing. So the person going to touch all these things. That's why I'm not going to go as detailed to define or explain much. So we look forward to our next class. Now we talk about organized teams. Now, yesterday I was writing a paper, and the first thing I've got to do first was not just to, okay, after I've collected my literatures and my account and to identify, the next thing I needed to do was I needed to write out the teams. Okay, this topic, this and this needs to be here, this needs to be here, this needs to be here. It also helps you in how you summarize. It also helps you in how you synthesize whatever it is. It also helps you in how you draw conclusions. So that's one of the things to look out for. Now, still on to what we are still doing here, talking about the academic writing, this writing disciplines. So academic writing requires drafting first, requires revising, editing, peer review. The good research is written more, good research is written more than it is written. Now, when we talk about drafting, drafting is the first phase in academic writing where after you've collected paper, you've done the reading, identified everything is critical or whatever it is. The first writing you do, the first article rough work you do is your drafting. So what you collected from this paper, what you collected from this paper, what you collected from this paper, you bring them together is the first drafting. That's what we call drafting. After that, you now go for the second reading, or let me even call it the first reading. In the first reading, you go over what you've done. Have you collected the right materials? Have you collected the right articles together? After that, then you now begin to do editing. Editing now, this is where tools come in. The usage of the clipboard, the Grammarly, this is where they come in. They also help you in your language usage, sentence structures. Peer review, after you've done it, you are done with editing, you go over again to see, does this thing even fit? Does this thing fit in the themes I've arranged? If you didn't go through these things, at the end of the day, you come up with I did a writing and I sent to someone. I thought I'd gone over it, I've gone over it. Then I sent the work. I just felt like I know I'm not satisfied. I went to write, I noticed again that something is missing. Remember, good research is rewritten more than it is written. So these are something to check out for over and over again. So in academic writing, these are certain things to look out for to become an effective academic writer. And I think at this junction, I'm going to take a bow. I'm going to take a bow. And thank you guys for staying with me. So I'm going to take questions right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. Although today the network had terrorized me very heavily. But yeah, thank you very much. I was able to get very good sessions out of it. And I'm sure it's so for all of this one this call. Viviana, thank you very much for joining this call. We appreciate your presence. So this is time for questions. If you need clarity on anything that he's talked about so far, you can bring it up and let's further the discussion on academic writing. So yeah, the floor is open to questions.
All right. I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. It was really helpful. But my question is this: when you collect your academic papers
Mm.
from database, do you normally write out your themes before you begin writing?
Okay. So this is what I do when I have a topic to work on and I've identified what I'm doing. But the first thing that I love doing is write out my themes before even venturing for the paper because you can end up spending time collecting academic papers, and at the end of the day, you can have irrelevant papers. But if you're able to draft out your theme also now your theme serves as your keyword. There's something we call the Boolean operation, where that's when you go into systematic review, you see stuff like that. Now they helps you in extracting what is important. Now, still in doing that, after drafting the theme, I'm going to get out my papers. There's something we call the inclusion criteria. So there are certain things that I should look out for in that paper based on the theme I've drafted out. So I think that's how I do my paper collection.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. But please, can you like briefly explain what you mean by themes? You know, I've heard a lot about themes, thematic or thematically, but I sometimes like I'm confused. What when you say themes, what do you really mean? Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, so when I talk about teams, basically, for for me, because when it comes to use of English, everyone has what they how they collect their languages together. Now, when I talk about, for example, if I'm working on, let's say, factors affecting student performance, right? Let's say in an online learning. Now, my teams has to do, I can now break down. First, in that topic, I'm sure you hear what I said, right? Maybe I said factors affecting student performance in online learning. Now, my teams now are the breakdown of that research, the breakdown of the topic. Now, I can have internet access as factors now, right? Internet access, student motivation, teachers training, platforms. So these guys now, these four things now broken down. Now, these are my teams for the topic, and they help me in the papers, collection of the papers. That okay, so okay. Now, when we talk about internet access, I now look out for a paper that talks about that. Then I have a main finding. I check out for my notes, my final notes concerning that paper. So when I talk about thematic or finding now, from a general topic is basically the breakdown, like the smaller breakdown piece of that main topic. That after the end of the day, I'm able to gather those thematic, those my teams together. You should need to give me an answer, a proper answer to my overall topic. So I think I don't know if you understand that. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do. I do. I do understand. Thank you so much.
All right, sir. Okay, sir.
But again, sir, quickly, let me just ask this again.
Okay.
Let's say, okay, let's say let me just continue with the example you already gave. Let's say, for instance, now, the themes you drafted out, something like internet access. So
Yes,
you
sir.
said you look for a paper that talks about internet access. So will you look for just that paper, like let's say on that particular theme, internet access? Will you look for just one paper that talks about that, or you can look for more than one paper? Let's say paper A, paper B, paper C that talks about that. Then maybe when you're synthesizing, you will like just combine, or let's say make a sense of what all those three papers said, but just all the three papers are talking about, let's say they're talking about internet access, for instance. Is that what you would do, or you can just take just one paper for that theme, internet access, and that will be okay?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Remember, I said initially when I began my class about synthesis and literature bias. Now, if I just pick one paper and I said, "Oh, Benjamin et al. 2025 said these about internet access," and that's all. I'm not synthesizing. That's not correct. That's wrong. I'm biased. Now, in the matter of that topic, right? In the matter of the internet access, I will even say if you can get as much, three paper is I think is manageable. But if you can go as far as more than five papers, it's going to make your work solid. Because now you are trying to tell us that I'm seeing this name, right? Bibiana, right? Bibiana said this, right? Bibiana agreed on this matter in regards to internet access. Now, Joshua did not agree on the matter, right? Or Joshua said this otherwise. Okay, Benjamin now stated this, and then I stated this. Now, for every reader that is reading it, before I now come to a conclusion that based on these papers, okay, this is what I think. Now you realize that it's going to make the work solid and ethical. So that's why when you are synthesizing paper based on topic like this, thematic and themes like this, it's very advised to you at least a minimum of three papers, or you can go beyond that. But one or two is also manageable. But the thing is, the more the papers, the more solid also. And again, too much paper is also not too okay. So maybe using 10 papers, I don't think it's very okay. But five is for me, five is the best number for me. Between four and five is the best number of papers on teams like this. What's up?
Wow, 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 wow. This is powerful. Thank you so much, sir. I used to be confused, or up till now, what I'm trying to really, really understand in academic writing is synthesizing of literature. Before, I used to feel is or what I've been doing before is just summary where we say paper A said this, paper B said this, paper C said this, and this is just me cataloging series of papers without really some synthesizing. But then I think I'm beginning to gain light or understand this synthesizing of the thing. Thank you so much. It
Okay.
was helpful. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Uh, Another question?
All right, Dr. Ben, thank you for very great questions. Mr. Joe, thank you for answering these questions as well. So I don't know if you have some contributions because I also have got questions to ask. Can you hear me? Can we hear me?
Are you talking to me?
Oh yes. I said I've got questions to ask.
Okay, go on, sir.
All right. So of recent, right? I don't know if you use YouTube Music. There's this lady who has a product. She built a product on citation, where
Okay.
her core building point was that many people write great papers, but their citations do not support their arguments, right?
Mm,
So that's where my question is coming from. So now,
okay.
if you have a research topic, right? If you have a research topic, you ask yourself questions, right, that test the arguments that you set to base your research on top, right? And the evidence or some of the clarities that may have existed before within your
I'm hearing.
or within your scope of, of research. So now within so now like this question would be like further scoped down into like um 4 sections. I don't know, yeah, 4 sections. Let me use 4 sections. Now the first is pre-writing and brainstorming, right?
Mm,
So how do you actually before like starting writing and where the brainstorming session, how do you like what is how do you identify a specific gap, right, in an existing literature, right? And how does your argument tries or attempt to fill in? That's one, right?
okay.
The second scope is evidence and your analysis.
Mm,
That's after brainstorming or the pre-writing section, right? Now you have an argument and you are thinking, okay, the specific gaps that I've identified, how does how do they anchor on the arguments that I've set out? Now you use that to anchor your evidence and then further your analysis. Now you ask your questions. Does the evidence or the evidence I have selected, do it directly support the claim my argument tries to anchor? Or does it just summarizes the source? I think that's where Dr. Ben's core technicality, because research academic writing is very technical.
yeah, very
Do
technical.
you can you identify when you're actually synthesizing and can you identify when you are just summarizing? Because some people think they are synthesizing while they're doing something else, right? These are like very technical things that come alongside academic writing. So now, how do you test your evidence from the research gaps you've identified that anchors in your core argument? That's the second question. Do I
Okay.
proceed or you answer the first two? Then I proceed with
Okay.
three and
So
four.
what would is that you go back to the first question, read out the first question, then answer it. So
All right. So now the first question is on pre-writing and brainstorming.
okay,
How do you identify the gaps, right, within your central argument? Like in just one
okay,
single line. You already know what you want to work on. But how do you actually anchor your central argument? That is identifying the specific gaps within other existing literatures.
okay. So if I am working on, let's say the topic I mentioned earlier, right? So I'm working on what's it called? What did I mention earlier? Maybe trying to check out for internet whatsoever. Now, I won't just rush to I won't just rush to maybe want to start writing or brainstorming because oh every paper has something to do with let's say the internet assessments, right? So the first thing I need to in regards to my brainstorming is so I write down my topic, First thing I used to do in regards to my brainstorming now is to check out in my readings. That's why every academic paper has what we call the objectives, has their aims in it. So while I'm reading through the papers, I'm reading through the writings, I should come to a point where I'm also paying attention to see, okay, the writer of this paper that I want to cite, all right? Um, are they able to, did they arrive at what's their conclusion saying in regards to their objectives? What's their conclusion saying in regards to their aim? Did their conclusion rhyme? And okay, if what we're checking out for is to check out for factors affecting student performance, right, in online learning. And at the end of the day, while we're done with the writing, what did they come up with in their writing? Are they actually able to find out those factors? And if yes, what could those factors be? If no, then what will happen? Now, this is where the matter of the gaps begins to come in. And so now they also check out for either maybe you're checking out for locations. These studies these guys carried out, where did they carry the location? What were the parameters that were involved? In that the paper you're checking out now, what are the parameters that were involved in doing these studies? Okay, oh, these people did these studies under the sun. Okay, the gap now is that they didn't do the other part of it, maybe in the dark environment. They didn't do this thing under a synthetic light. These things are gaps now that you are fishing out from the paper which you felt okay, this paper is good. Yeah. So while you're doing your brainstorming, these are things you check out for. Okay, while I'm doing this research, this. Okay, if they did this, why didn't they check this? This is how gaps come in. This is how you tend to identify gaps in academic paper. So I don't know if that's if you are clarified in that regard.
Okay, yes, I am. But then I still have a follow up on that. Okay,
Okay,
so
go on.
um, if my intention for my topic was to pursue it, and then after identifying the gaps, I
Mm,
discovered that their conclusion is more of analyzing how do I, you know, balance this conflict. Although, although their gaps make sense with my core intentions of my topic, right? But then my idea was just to inform. But then from the conclusions, having identified those existing gaps that literally match mine, but their goal actually was not to inform, but then to analyze how do we balance this conflict?
okay, so
Because the goal of the because the goal to also as well has to also fall in line, right?
that's fair.
I'm sure you
No, idea.
I'm trying to pin.
Uh, can you come again? Say that again because the network, I think the network is very good. There's a
Hello,
glitch
can you hear
in
me?
what you're saying. I think 10 seconds. All right, so let me just
Hello, I don't know. The network is terrible.
hear me now.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Proceed.
Okay.
So yeah, I was done with the question.
Okay, so you want to persuade, they are just being and they are just analyzing. Now, first thing you need to look out for is the kind of paper, because if what I want to do now, let me go back to the other. If I want to do um is more of a persuasive writing, maybe to just maybe to just defend the point, right? Now, and the paper I'm having at hand is just analyzing the matter. Then maybe I'm with the wrong paper. Let me begin from that point. That's why if you are going out to search out for papers, we have a full research paper. We have the literature the review papers. Even in the review papers, we have descriptive review papers. We have the narrative review papers. And we have other, so we don't have the systematic. Even in systematic, we have the normal systematic and we have the systematic and meta analysis papers. Now, the drive, or let me say, the structure of a systematic, the normal systematic review paper and a systematic and meta-analysis paper are two different things. So, if my goal is to be persuasive and what I'm seeing is more analytical, then I need to check back again. So this is just the basic thing to pay attention to. Thank you very much. I don't know if that is okay.
Right.
Clarified.
Yeah, true. I get now.
Mm.
I get. So the actually the
Is there another
first
question?
and the fourth
Okay.
point, the first and the third actually were in flow and then in line. But then so I'm just gonna go like right straight to the fourth question because I think the explanation kinds of covers the three or like the first three sections. I wanted scoping down my questions to. So now this
Okay.
is more about mechanics, like I've mentioned, technicalities and mechanics of academic writing, you know.
Mm.
And you mentioned tone, right? The tone of academic writing.
Mm.
So how do you I know you spoke about it, and in tone, right? Tone is not complete, tone of academic writing is not complete if you don't have a preferred citation style or a preferred citation and referencing style scope. And also to as well, they're like objectives that is in terms of words, right? Or the accuracies, or some sort of clarities, or some things that you ought to unnecessarily avoid. Sometimes this can be some sort of things like words that are vague, or
That's
some
right.
people use jargons.
Mm.
Some people like to call it jargons, or some sort of overly conversational language
Mm.
in your, like during the process of your academic writing. So the problem is we do things sometimes and we don't know that we're doing them, right? Um, how like do do different topics have different academic tones, and how do you identify what tone to use for what academic project? Do you get the
Okay.
question?
Yeah, talking about um different topics, different academic tool, and then I think that's the first question. And how do you manage it, right? Or how do you go about it? I think. Now, academic tone is very, very
Yes.
important, as I've said, right? Very, very important. And I began by saying that it's not an emotional thing. So it's not, I know I write poem. So it's not like, oh, when I was working, my eyes saw something very awesome and I was caught by it. And then, not something like that. First is it's a neutral writing that is balanced, right? Now, each academic writing generally has um, a structure. Let me use that word. It generally has a pattern how it should be done. Now, when you are writing each paper, there are certain papers that has a particular tone that's peculiar to them. For example, topic, sorry. For example, if I'm writing um topics around the law system, right? It's totally different. Even their citations there is totally different. Like I was working on one this afternoon. Now, how you work on that, even the citations, we don't do the index citation we do there. Mostly what we do there are footnotes. That's why I make mention of the Oscar, right? Yes, we don't do the normal citations we do in the scientific writings there. Now, there are certain topics, let's say if I'm writing on oil. I'm working on maybe doing something on hydro oil, and then at the same time doing something on antimicrobial. Now, the usage of terminologies, the usage of my tones also. There's a general tone, as I said, right? There's general tone of neutral, the precise, the logical, evidence-driven. There's a general tone, but there's also some peculiarities to each paper. So that's why if you are bringing in the tone for a microbial paper into biochem, you can have issues. As I'm bringing the tone for either plant biology into either library information science, there's a challenge. Like I'm guiding someone in writing a paper. The person is working on a novel. Um, was on this Open Hibiscus. She's an English student. Now the tone entirely, like the tone entirely is totally different from like it's totally different. The way you cite there is very funny. You get so this is one of the things. I don't know the second question. I don't know if did I touch it or you rephrase that question so I can answer it.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely did. I mean, there was this example you just referenced, and it actually just scoped the entire thing out, and I actually get it now, right? So I appreciate your contributions to all the questions asked. That's it for me for questions from my end. I don't know
Uh,
if Bibiana or the other, listener has got a question.
Viviana, I'm not sure she's active. Okay, if she doesn't have any.
I'm active. Oh, good evening, everybody. I actually came late because of my work. This my IT place is kind of very busy, so I came late. And I must say, you guys are really doing a lot here. Thank you all for this great opportunity. I don't have a question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Bibiana. All right then. So I think okay, Dr. Ben, you want to speak and all right,
Yeah,
proceed.
I think you can stop recording the class if since there are no other questions.
All right then. Thank you very much. So I think this is the end of questions from I think everyone on the call. As usual, to be very honest, sincerely, thankfully, we say thank you for preparing our time to come speak to us about academic writing today. And our sessions will continue growing stronger, bigger, and better as we, keen on growing and expanding our networks. Really and sincerely appreciate you. I don't know if you have any more words to leave for us before, we strap our eyes and cross the teeth.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Okay.
you can go ahead, sir.
Okay. So just a brief thing. All I just have to say is that academic writing basically is like a lonely part, and the earlier the better. The earlier the better. And for everyone here, please, I'm going to be making an offer. That's why I want everyone to be fully involved. Very soon, I'm looking at how you guys can have a publication, even if it's a review paper, before the end of this year. That's my goal for you guys. So you need to know who and who is serious about this. I want to see how far you guys can have a publication before the end of the year. Because for me, I'm still gathering my own papers together to send to my various lecturers so that we can do that. But for you guys, I'm looking at to see how far you can, even though it's just a normal communication writing. So I love what you guys are doing. I love the involvement. I love the consistency, and you guys should keep it up. Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Honestly, we really appreciate you for this wonderful session today. And then our next class, for those of you who were here earlier, somebody joined this class. One Haggai Elisha. He was my campus director during Millennium Fellowship class of 2024, and he's also a researcher. He's really, really good as well. So, Sergio, if we were chatting before the class, I told you how that I had plans of inviting somebody who will come take us in the next class, in the upcoming class that will be next week Friday. Yes, and he's the one. He's the person that I have reached out to him already, and he has accepted to be present. He said that I should send him all that we want him to discuss about. So I want him to take us on synthesizing literature coming our next to our next class next week Friday. So he has accepted. So I'm going to draft up everything that he will be discussing about synthesizing literature for our next class. Yes.
All right, that's very okay. We look forward to having you on board. And, I know what you've done already. That's a good one. So let's keep putting our what we're doing now. Here. I love it, guys.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Ben, for a very beautiful manner, and we look forward to having your. Oh, okay. But yeah, but then we talk about this just after the recording has stopped. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and have a very beautiful night and night rest ahead. Thank you.